do. That's their whole ministry. It's trying to get the scriptures, a copy of the Bible, or New Testaments, or whatever they can into people's hands in their own language. And so I got a letter from the guy, and he said it only costs $2 for a New Testament, to get a New Testament to somebody in their own language. And I thought, you know what? We got to do that. We have got to do that. The Word of God is so critical, so important, and so we will look into our church being a part of that, and so that you can know that when you give, that's the kind of thing that you're supporting. We're trying to reach the world. We're trying to affect more than just us and all. We're trying to reach the world. And so, hey, let's pray, because this was the thing. Those Christians that wanted truth, they were under persecution, severe persecution. And they said, we don't want protection. We want the Word of God. Man, that just pricked my heart. I was like, God help us for what we do have, to be grateful and thankful and gloriously praising Him for it. And so let's do pray for our brothers and sisters tonight all over the world who may be facing persecution. And let's pray one for another tonight as well. Let's pray, get ready to give, get ready to worship the Lord. Father, we're so thankful for your grace, your goodness, your love, your mercy. We just ask, oh God, tonight that you would move in a special way. And God, you would touch every heart. Father, we're thankful for the privilege of being in your house. Nobody was here to intimidate us. Nobody stood between us and coming. Nobody, we didn't have to secretly come. We're not under that kind of persecution as others are in the world. And Lord, we are so thankful and grateful to have Scripture available to us. May we not only worship and praise you for that and be thankful for that, but Lord, may we also turn that around and help others to get the Word. We know how critical the Word of God is. And so, Lord, would you touch our hearts that we might help those who need that. And Lord, may we give to support the work that will go forth in that all across this globe. Father, we pray for those who are not here tonight, whatever be the reason, those who are sick. We pray, God, that you would strengthen them, touch them, minister to them. God, we pray for those who may have had surgeries and procedures this week. We pray, God, you continue to work and strengthen them. Father, would you bless even in this house tonight and draw us all closer to you? May you do a wonderful work in our heart, in our life. Father, we will glorify you. We will thank you. We will praise you, and we will honor you. And Father, for the offering tonight, our tithes, our offering, Lord, would you bless the gift and the giver? May it be used for the upbuilding of your kingdom. Father, we'll give you the glory, the honor, and the praise for it all. For we ask it in Jesus' mighty, precious, and holy name. And everybody said amen. And amen. Let's give our tithes and offerings. Let's worship the Lord together tonight.
You're the only one I need. I turn to you when you are.
Our class will be dismissed at this time. Amen. Thank you again for being here in the house of the Lord. Again, pray you've had a blessed week and a blessed day, and trust that the Lord will finish us off good tonight. Amen. Let's go one more time. Been talking about prayer pollution for a few weeks. This might be one of the last. I'm kind of feeling a little pushed a little different direction. We'll see kind of where we go after tonight. But back in 2 Chronicles 7, just for our base text, verses 12 through 14, 2 Chronicles chapter 7. I got a lot of other scriptures here in just a little bit that we're going to look at on tonight's subject. Starting in verse 12, 2 Chronicles chapter 7, the Lord appeared to Solomon by night and said to him, I have heard thy prayer, and have chosen this place to myself for an house of sacrifice. If I shut up heaven that there be no rain, or if I command the locusts to devour the land, or if I send pestilence among my people, if my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven, will forgive their sin, and will heal their land. May the Lord bless the reading of His Word. Again, we've been talking about prayer pollution, things that can contaminate, hinder, restrict our prayers. When He tells us here that if we will humble ourselves and pray, but it's not just praying. We want to pray effective prayers. We don't want to pray prayers that are hindered or somehow that are contaminated, polluted, what have you. So several weeks we've been discussing how certain actions and attitudes can become hindrances to our prayers anyway. And we've called it prayer pollution. Just like certain chemicals and substances and elements can be released into the Earth's atmosphere and cause air pollution, there are certain things that can become a part of us and even be that really from us can even be in the atmosphere and the aura around us. That's not air pollution, but prayer pollution. The spiritual atmosphere is affected. Air pollution affects the air quality, the ability for people to breathe and live a certain quality of life. So also are there things that affect the spiritual air quality of our lives and our ability to get our spiritual breath, and that can be hindered. And it can definitely affect every area of our life, every spiritual thing, worship, praise, prayer, everything. But we've been looking more about how it affects and can hinder our prayers, and how those things can become a spiritual contaminant, a pollutant in our spiritual life. Those things affect the atmosphere around us. When there's something that we're carrying with us, it affects things around us. If there's something negative that's within us, it affects things around us. It's like the man said, it's not about are you in a storm, but is a storm in you. Because if you're if the storm is in you, then everywhere you go, it's storming. Because you're carrying it. It's become more a part of you. And the elements that we're identifying, it not only pollutes us, it also can affect the spiritual atmosphere around us. If you go back to Deuteronomy 28, verse 23, it says, it speaks of actions and behaviors that would this is what he said, it would cause thy heaven that is over thy head to be brass. Thy heaven, not the whole heaven, but thy heaven. That's personal. And so he's talking about that's the chapter, by the way, where he's talking about if you obey me, if you follow these commandments, then I'll bless you. If you don't, then there's cursing, there's negative, there's restriction that comes. And he said one of the negative things that come, he said, is, thy heaven over thy head. will be brass. In other words, it won't pour out rain and such. And I don't know about you, I don't want my heaven to be brass. I want my heaven to be blessed. I want my heaven to be bountiful. I want my heaven to be beautiful. And so it's we can't just relegate such things. Well, you know, it's the time in which we live. Well, you know, it's just the shape of the world. No, there's sometimes when it's us. There's sometimes when it's us as an individual. Yes, it can be corporate, but there's sometimes when it's us. When we are carrying, so when there's something that is infected us that has begun to cause the issues and the restrictions. So far, this is the fourth week, I think, we've looked at unforgiveness. The first week we looked at regarding iniquity in our heart, kind of correlated together there. It's more things that we regard in our heart than just unforgiveness, but it is kind of similar. And then last week we kind of looked at judgmentalism, judging, which can include any form of prejudice, racism, things of that nature. And I didn't really finish that. I may come back and touch on it, I don't know, but at a later time. But as I sought the Lord this week, He really put something on my heart that I think can become a pollutant and a toxin, a poison, a contaminant in our spiritual walk, in our spiritual lives, in general. And honestly, I'm gonna say it, but I want you to be open, because this honestly, what the Lord opened up to me this week, it changed my whole perspective. Changed my whole perspective. And so really, what I want to talk tonight about is murmuring. Okay, y'all not excited about that? Okay, I didn't know. I'm just kidding. So I want us to, before we make assumptions and jump to conclusions about what it is, I want to look at some scriptures. So I want you to turn to Exodus 15, and this will be on the screen because we're going to look at a lot of scriptures. Okay, but Exodus chapter 15. Verses 22 through 24. Then we're going to chapter 16. Then we're going to chapter 17. Okay, I want us to look at all these together. Exodus chapter 15, verse 22. So Moses brought Israel from the Red Sea. And this is right after they come across. He brought them from the Red Sea. They went out into the wilderness of Shur. They went 3 days in the wilderness and found no water. And when they came to Marah, they could not drink of the waters of Marah, for they were bitter. Okay? So where are they at? At a bitter place. A bitter experience. Something ain't working right. Okay? Therefore, the name of it was called Marah, because Marah means bitter. And the people murmured against Moses, saying, what shall we drink? Now, let's look at chapter 16. Begin at verse 1. They took their journey from Elim, and all the congregation of the children of Israel came to the wilderness of Zin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after the departing out of the land of Egypt. And the whole congregation of the children of Israel murmured against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. And the children of Israel said to them, would to God we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the flesh pot, when we did eat bread to the full. We wanted to die on a full stomach. That's what they said. For ye have brought us forth into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. Then said the Lord to Moses, behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather at a certain rate every day, that I may prove them whether they will walk in my law or no. It shall come to pass that on the 6th day they shall prepare that which they bring in. It will be twice as much as they gather daily. And Moses and Aaron said to all the children of Israel, at even then ye shall know that the Lord hath brought you out of the land of Egypt. And in the morning then ye shall see the glory of the Lord, for that He heareth your murmurings against the Lord. Now it said they murmured against Moses and Aaron, but He said, no, you murmured against the Lord, and what are we that ye murmur against us? And Moses said, this shall be when the Lord shall give you in the evening flesh to eat, in the morning bread to the full, that the Lord heareth your murmurings which ye murmur against Him. And what are we? Your murmurings are not against us, but against the Lord. And then in chapter 17, verse number 3. And the people thirsted there for water, and the people murmured against Moses and said, where is this that thou hast brought us up out of Egypt to kill us and our children and our cattle with thirst? The reason I want to read so many verses and passages and always to show you that murmuring is not just a fleeting complaint. Murmuring is when this has become the attitude. This has become the normal. This has become the characteristic, sort of the defining characteristic. So, and I say that, however, what we also have to realize is that complaining also has its dangers, because complaining is kin to murmuring. Complaining and murmuring kind of can work together. So let me put some things together for us. In Exodus 15:24, it is the first time that the word murmur shows up in our English Bible, translated from the Hebrew into English. But the sequence of events between Exodus 15, 16, and 17 give us kind of this necessary picture to understand the nature of what biblically defined murmuring really is. Now again, murmuring and complaining are kin, but they are not always the same. They are in the same family, but they are not twins. They are not the same thing. We could say that complaining is the seed for murmuring. If you start complaining enough, eventually it'll lead to murmuring. I'll show you just a little bit what kind of the difference is and what murmuring biblically is. So, but complaining can turn into murmuring. How many knows if we got even a complaining heart, a complaining spirit, much less if it leads to something more intense, that can be a pollutant. That can be a hindrance. I mean, how many knows that when you give to somebody, whether it be spouse, whether it be children, whether it be parent, no matter who it is, that if all they do is complain about what you give, how many know you sort of want to quit giving? Because you don't think that there's this appreciation, there's this thing that there's a gratitude that should be there, and so it begins to affect. Listen, I want to tell you that even though God is not human and He doesn't always respond in kind like we do, yet at the same time, I think there's evidence in Scripture that things like that affect God and His willingness even to release things to us. And so therefore, if this is in our heart and we're praying for God to do certain things, but it's filled with a murmuring spirit and a complaining attitude, then all of a sudden, I believe it becomes a pollutant. It becomes something that begins to restrict our prayers. Another way of looking at it is like this, that murmuring is like complaining on steroids. It's like so much more intense. It's when complaining turns into protesting. It's when complaining turns into criticizing. So as with just about anything, there's kind of these levels and degrees of this. And so murmuring can also mean whispering or muttering. And whispering kind of reveals its nature. Whispering is also akin to hissing. And I've never heard a good hissing sound. Never. It always has this connotation of negativity, of something that's not good. But the Hebrew word is even more interesting. The word for murmur in the biblical spiritual sense means this. It means to grumble in obstinance. To grumble in obstinance. So let's break this down. To grumble, synonyms for grumble is to gripe, to mutter, to protest, or to object. Synonyms for obstinance is stubbornness, inflexibility, and pig-headedness. Ouch. And when you put them together, when you put grumbling, griping, protesting, objecting, with the stubbornness, with being inflexible, with being pig-headed, when you put them together, murmuring becomes a degree of complaint or a degree of grumbling and griping and protesting that is stubborn, that is inflexible, and that is pig-headed. That is the biblical definition, or at least in part, of murmuring. When we're talking about biblical murmuring, we're not talking about someone that just, decide, man, he had that air conditioner down way too low tonight. It's just cold. Okay, that's not murmuring. It might be a complaint. It might be just an opinion, right? So that doesn't qualify necessarily as murmuring. Murmuring is when you cannot please that individual with the gym. Man, it's too cold. Man, Sunday it was too hot. Man, they should turn them things off. What's he trying to do? Kill us? He should turn them things off. It's like no matter what you do. Now this is an ongoing spirit. It's an ongoing attitude. It's an ongoing thing. And so it's inflexible. It's like it can't be corrected. And again, not that, complaining is okay, but biblically it doesn't carry the same weight. Even though some newer translations use these words interchangeably, murmuring and complaining. I was reading in like the New King James and different versions, and they actually replaced the word murmur with the word complaining, but it really doesn't mean the same thing in the original language. And so we're talking about a deep-seated attitude. Listen to these words. A deep-seated attitude that refuses correction. That refuses correction. Watch. Murmuring is an obstinate, grumbling, and inflexible, adamant attitude of griping, protesting, and objecting that refuses to be corrected. In other words, it's so persistent, it's so tenacious, it's so unrelenting, it scoffs at the fact or at the suggestion that it's improper or unsuitable or inappropriate. In other words, it becomes defiant, it becomes rebellious. Now, having said all that, probably, hopefully, there are no murmurers among us, right? So, because if that is that intense, and why would it? Because, and I really believe this, because I believe that since complaining can be conceived, and there's levels of grumbling and griping, and that if we're not careful, what can happen is accepting it in ourselves at one level can lead to it manifesting on another level. When you begin to accept certain things, you're on dangerous ground because sin loves to grow. Sin loves to grow. Sin doesn't like to stay its original size. Sin always likes to increase. Sin always likes more territory. Sin always loves to conquer. Sin always. And so I believe that the reason we deal with it is because if complaining is the seed of murmuring, I believe that even that in itself can still hinder us. Because if we do not learn to adjust, if we do not learn to correct it at the lower degree, then it can expand into something much more and much worse. And so the goal and the objective is to keep it from getting to that point. There's a scripture in Isaiah I was thinking about today. I really meant to look it up. I don't know the exact reference. But it talks about turning the battle at the gate. Turning the battle at the gate. In other words, don't let something come into the city and walk around and before you start resisting it, before you start pushing back. Stop the battle. Turn the battle at the gate. Wouldn't that be great if we could learn that? Wouldn't that be great if we could learn that? Yes, Pastor, it would be. All right, if I got to hang myself on that moment. It would just be if we learn to not give place to the devil. If we wouldn't give place to anything negative, not just complaining and murder, but anything negative. If we learn to turn it at the gate, right here. In other words, be the doorkeeper. David said, I'd rather be a doorkeeper in the house of God. Listen, you are the temple. Be the doorkeeper. Be the doorkeeper of the temple, of the house of God. And he said, why? Because that's where you regulate what gets in and what goes out. And so we need to learn to turn things at the gate. If we don't, then it gets in there and it begins to manifest, it begins to wreak havoc, and it's a whole lot harder. I've said this many times. It's a whole lot harder to throw out an oak tree than it is an acorn. A whole lot harder. and you lose more ground. And you lose more ground.
Amen.
So it's great if we can turn it at the gate. So this is why it's important, because if complaining is sort of that basis, if it's the seed, then we need to stop it at that point and not let it grow and not let it increase. And so I want to kind of give us some motivation for that as well. And I always say, I'm not planning on being as long as I was the week before, but I'm going to quit saying that, but I'm just not going to say nothing. But, so here's another way of looking at it. The opposite of complaining is thankfulness and gratitude. Murmuring, if we can look at that as a worse form or more intense form of complaining, and the opposite of complaining is thankfulness and gratitude, then you know what? I believe that the total opposite, the extreme opposite of murmuring would be praise. If the opposite of complaining is thankfulness and gratitude, okay, if you got complaining here, okay, and directly opposed to it, the exact opposite over here is thankfulness and gratitude. If that's the case, then a more extreme form of complaining is murmuring. Okay, so at its extreme, it's rebellious, it's resistant, it's inflexible. You can't tell, you can't even suggest that they're blessed. They won't hear you. Anybody know anybody? I mean, you can't even point out how blessed they really are. They will not agree with it. They will always find. Listen, I'm telling you, this is important. This is important. So you have the griping, or you have the complaining, okay, and then you can say, griping, grumbling. You can see it progressive. So the extreme of complaining is murmuring. However, over here you've got thankfulness that is the opposite of complaining. If the extreme of complaining is murmuring, then the extreme opposite is praise. So if we want to get as far away as we can from murmuring, then we have to push our lives in the direction of praise, of thankfulness, of gratefulness. Amen. I'm just glad it's a baby crying. I'm an adult at this point. but so now, listen. Even in the dictionary, the antonym, which is the exact opposite of murmuring, is praise. Now they may not be thinking of it the way we are, but listen. So even though this is not really talking about just the fleeting little comments that sometimes we make, complaints, there's still dangers in complaining at all, because how many knows this, that what at one time is fleeting, it can become fixed. It can, in other words, that which is passing, we just make this passing comment, it can become permanent. And what is momentary can become a constant in our life. And there's something even more interesting about the Hebrew word for murmur. And as found in Exodus 15, 16, 17, and other places. I told you that Exodus 15:24 is the first time that the word murmur is found in our English version. But it is not the first time the Hebrew word for murmur that's translated there is found in Scripture. The Hebrew word for murmur there is the word lun. It's Luwn, but it's pronounced lun. It's found 88 times in 79 Scriptures. And it can mean to grumble, to complain, or to murmur. But I was very intrigued to discover that is the secondary meaning. So, lun, to be a grumble, to complain, to murmur, that is the definition, but it's secondary. The primary definition of the word lun in the Hebrew means to lodge, to stop over, and to pass the night. So watch. The first time this is used is in Genesis Genesis 19, verse 2. When Lot is in Sodom, and he's sitting at the gate, and when he saw these two angels come towards Sodom, he said this in Genesis 19:2, Behold now, my lords, turn in, I pray you, into your servant's house, and tarry all night. It's the same word for murmur. Tarry all night. Come in and tarry. Come in and tarry all night. And, he says, wash your feet, and ye shall rise up early and go on your ways. And they said, Nay, but we will abide. Guess what? It's the same word. We will abide, or loom, we will abide in the street all night. And they say it again. It's the same word. 3 times it's used in that one verse. In fact, the first 10 times this Hebrew word is used in Scripture, it has nothing to do with murmuring. It has to do with lodging. It has to do with abiding. It has to do with spending the night somewhere. It's also used when Jacob is fleeing Esau. The Bible said that he come upon a certain place and he tarried all night. It's the same word. And I thought, what in the world does that mean? And then I began to pray, and the Lord, the Holy Spirit, began to put some things together. And here's the danger of murmuring, griping, grumbling, complaining, anything on that. Here's the danger of it. The word means 2 things. It means to murmur, but it also means to lodge. It means to pass the night. It means to stop over. And here's what happens. When you start murmuring and complaining, you halt your advance. You literally stop your progress. If you read Israel's history, even though the words are not there, but if you read even here, in the passages that we read, they did not advance while they were murmuring. They got stuck wherever they murmured. Man, that was powerful. And I began to see that, and I was like, man, I don't, because I felt stuck before in life. And the first place, after they crossed the Red Sea, the first place they murmured was at Marah, a place of bitter experience. And how many knows that it's really easy because life, even the Christian life, is not all sweetness and sunshine. See, I can build my case about how this been going. You only have to look at Israel. The passages we read begin to deal with their journey out of Egypt into the wilderness, and we all know that what best should have been a journey of a few weeks to get to the promised land at most, ended up being 40 years, and many died in the wilderness, and they were heavy murmurers. Now, there was definitely other factors that contributed to that, but there's no denying that the sin and the practice of murmuring played a role. And the danger for us to begin to complain about circumstances and events and people and problems or provision or whatever the case might be, according to the Hebrew meaning, murmuring has this halting effect. It has this hindering effect. It has this restrictive effect. It has a paralyzing. If I start murmuring, guess what? I've just set up camp. When I start complaining and murmuring, I've just put up my tent. And God said, you'll stay right there. Preach on. I'll stay right there. God says, you will stay right there because I can't lead you forward while you're doing this. I can't bring you into greater things. I can't bring you into more blessing because you have reached a point of complaint and of protest and of objection, and you have just set up camp. And so it has this effect that stifles our spiritual progress, and almost you could say it asphyxiates our spiritual advancement. It strangulates our progress. And in fact, when you could go through Israel's history, especially in their wilderness journey, and you can easily see that time they murmured, they literally stopped to murmur. You don't say it all the time, but if you look at the activity, they got bogged down in a particular place wherever they let this begin to rise up. They never murmured while advancing. Their murmuring always brought them to a standstill. And so the first place, like I was saying, was Mara. Listen, even the Christian life is not all sweet things. Not all cups of experience in life that we drink on this journey are pleasant and enjoyable. Right. Even as believers, there are some bitter things we go through. There are some bitter experiences that we have. Some of life is unpleasant. It is bitter. It is right down nasty. That goes for everybody. And the Bible does not say, for everything give thanks. But it does say, in everything give thanks. Maintain an attitude of gratitude, of thankfulness, of appreciation, of praise. I can't praise necessarily for everything, but I can choose. If Paul and Silas was not praising God for the prison, but they did praise God in the prison. They did not praise Him for the pain, but they praised Him in the pain. They did not praise Him for what had been done to them, but they praised Him in the midst of what had been done unto them. And so we are to maintain a posture of thankfulness and of gratitude, regardless of what circumstance you find yourself in. And it's, man, we said over and over and over and over and over. This is why it's a heart issue. You got to guard your heart. Because it's not what happens to us, but what happens in us that is most important. So all of this has to do with how we handle the bitter places, the bitter cup, the bitter experiences of life. The way not to handle it is to murmur and complain. To begin to complain and let it move you to this place of murmuring. Again, biblical murmuring. An obstinate grumbling that refuses correction. And again, we don't want to entertain any level of it because it can easily grow and increase and expand. Before long, it can even begin to dominate our life. I've come on many people that it was just everything negative. And you try to point out something positive to it. It's like Jesus said, it's like casting your pearl before swine. They will turn and rend you, the Scripture says. They will nearly take your head off. And why? Because they have committed themselves. They have become fixated on the bitterness. And they have become committed to complaining about life and about their circumstances. And that's when it gets dangerous. Because any degree of murmuring can hinder our prayers, hinder our spiritual walk, hinder our spiritual progress. Again, it means to lodge, to bog down, to camp out, to stop over, to tarry, to be there overnight. And what we see in Israel is very insightful. Here's the... Now, I'm going to read those passages, I read them several times even again today. And I noticed how that Moses cried to the Lord, but Israel was crying against the Lord. And even though we wouldn't say that we would really, they didn't really see themselves doing that either, but that was the clarification that Scripture brought. That they really were not crying out to the Lord, they was crying out against the Lord. Now they thought it was just somebody else, but it was with the Lord. In other words, we can be doing it without really thinking that we're doing it. One of the pastors said that Israel murmured against Moses, but Moses clarified and said they're not murmuring against us, but against the Lord. Consider this: if you and I are trying to follow the Lord, and you and I believe that He is ordering our steps, come on, the good man ordered by the Lord. And I'm doing my best to follow the Lord, and I come up on Mara. He just brought me through the Red Sea. Holy man, the water's parted, and there's victory, and there's the women were dancing and all that. And then all of a sudden, I come upon a bitter experience. All of a sudden, I got a choice to make. If I get to that point and I begin to murmur and I begin to complain, about where I currently am, what's going on in my life, then it's basically beginning to criticize God's wisdom. It's basically beginning to criticize God's character. It's beginning to criticize His leadership. See how dangerously subtle this is? See how dangerously subtle this is? And then I read the fact that even though they weren't crying out to the Lord, but against the Lord, here's the thing. God still heard them. You don't have to formally pray to God for Him to hear. He hears everything. And He heard them. And He said, I mean, if you go on and read even later and read the story about what He would do sometimes, when they would begin to complain and end up murmuring against Him. I mean, it's like, hey, you want Him to hear an answer? He will. But you better be careful what you let Him hear and because He will answer. Whether it's a prayer or whether it's a murmur. And so all of that being said, again, not saying that we are murmurers, but this is why we have to guard early and sort of stand against and turn things at the gate early on, and not letting complaining become a part of our life. So this is what I thought. I was like, God, but is there a positive part of this? Is there a positive spin? Because, okay, if we know that being a part of our life can hinder, it can halt, it can stop, it can paralyze, it can lodge us, if we know that, then is there a positive? What? And he's like, what's the opposite? What's the opposite? And I said, okay, well, the opposite of complaining was thankfulness and gratitude. And the extreme of complaining is murmur, but the extreme opposite would be praise. And he's like, okay, then you have to be on this side. You have to be thankful. You have to be grateful. You have to be appreciative. You have to have gratitude. And he said, you have to praise and you have to worship. You have to push to the other side. And that doesn't happen automatically. That doesn't happen automatically. That doesn't happen automatically. You have to make a decision. I am not going to get wrapped up in just complaining and just in negativity. I'm going to push, and I'm going to intentionally head toward praise. Okay. And so the positive is this: if murmuring, the extreme over here, halts our progress, and the opposite of murmuring is praise, then I think it would stand to reason that if murmuring halts my progress, praise will promote my progress. God says, look at them people praising them. Look, there they are at Mara. There they are at a bitter place. But they're not at a bitter place with arms folded and chest poked out and noses just murmuring. He said, but here they are at Mara, the bitter place, and their heads are bowed, and their hands are raised, and they're walking in humility, and they're praising me anyway, and they're glorifying me anyway, and they're saying the same one who brought us across the Red Sea, brought us through on dry ground. If He can do it, come on, if He can part the water, surely He can heal the waters. And so I think it stands to reason that if murmuring halts our progress, praise promotes our progress. So here is yet another positive. Here's another positive purpose and spiritual benefit and a reason to engage in praise and in worship, because it can help propel you in your spiritual walk. It does not take the place of character, of development, of discipleship, but it is an integral part of our spiritual progress. It can propel you forward in life, in your spiritual walk, even in the battles you face. I was thinking about this today and didn't have quite the time to totally research it out. So I'll be careful how I say this. But if you think that this praise propelling us forward, and if you think that's a stretch, consider this. There were times in Israel's history when they was getting ready to go to battle. You know who they put out front? Praisers. praisers, the worshipers, the singers, the ones that would give glory to God. And this is why I didn't have a chance to really research out. But in my mind, and I don't claim to know the Bible inside and out, but I could not think of one time, I could not think initially of one battle where they put the praisers out front. I could not think of one time when they did that where they lost that particular battle. If that stands, that's pretty powerful. That'll make us get up on our feet in the midst of the bitter cup. Come on. Drink, if you got to drink that thing, just wipe your mouth off and then lift up your hand. Right? And bless him anyway. Because I don't want to get stuck at Mara. I don't want to get lodged at Mara. I don't want to stay at Mara any longer than I have to. We all have those times, but I don't want to prolong it by setting up camp through complaining and griping and grumbling and murmuring. What I want to do is I want to praise my way through. I want to glorify God even in the midst of it. And he says, hey, now I can take you somewhere. Now I can get you somewhere. And I cannot think of any particular time or instance when they put praisers out in front of the army where they lost those battles. So if murmuring can halt our progress, hinder our advancement, and pollute our prayers, the opposite, I believe, stands to reason that it's also true that praise can move us forward. And I think it's because God is concerned with attitude. God is concerned with an attitude of gratitude and a spirit of praise and of thanksgiving. It's like the sweet-smelling incense that rises up before the Lord. No wonder that when they built the tabernacle structure in the temple, that when they came after all that flesh burning out there, and they washed in the water to clean that up, and they came in, and there was the bread, and there was the oil. No wonder before they would go in the Holy of Holies, they'd grab that sweet-smelling incense before they'd go in. Because that represents our praise and our prayer. And it needs to be a sweet-smelling savor, not something like the stench that was out here. He said the aroma needs to change. If you're really going to come into my presence, the aroma needs to change. Don't be out here where all there is you smell flesh. He said, come in here and grab some incense, grab some prayer, grab some praise, grab some purity, grab those things, and offer them up before me, and then you can come in. And so the attitude of gratitude, the spirit of praise and thanksgiving is like that incense being offered up before the Lord. And you know what? I say let's move forward. Let's move forward by doing our best to keep a song in our hearts and a praise on our lips and give glory to God for all He has done, even when life doesn't seem to be working out. Let's still give God the glory because He's a great and awesome God. He is a good Father. And He is worthy of our praise. Come on, give Him a hand right now. Come on, give Him a good Lord. We honor You. I can bless You in a bitter place. I can bless You in a bitter place. I can bless You when things go right, and I can bless You when things go wrong. I don't want to be stuck in Mara. I don't want to be lodged in Mara. I don't want to be camped out in bitterness. Lord, I'm going to praise my way through this. I'm going to honor You through this. If You brought me out of Egypt, if You brought me across the Red Sea, Lord, You can take me. You can get me past Mara. You can provide the bread. You can provide the water. You can heal this situation. You can heal this circumstance. So I'm not getting bogged down where I'm at. I'm not getting bogged down in here. And I'm going to bless the Lord at all times. His praise will continually be in my mouth. I will lift up His name, for He is worthy. He is glorious. He is mighty. He is majestic. It doesn't matter what happens in life. He's still King of Kings. He's still Lord of Lords. He's still worthy of our praise. Hallelujah. 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 So Lord, we honor You. We'll praise You in the soul. And we'll bless You in the bitter place. And we'll glorify You anyway. Because, Lord, we've given You control. We trust you. We trust your wisdom. We trust your leadership. We trust your judgment. We trust your power. We trust the blood of Jesus. We trust the victory that you said you want. We trust you with our life. And I trust you with eternity. I will trust you with this problem. I will trust you with this circumstance. I will trust you with my family. I will trust you, Lord. And I will bless your name. And I will praise you. Even in the midst of pain, even in the midst of problems, even in poverty, even in difficulty, even in dilemma. Lord, I will bless your name, and I will praise you, and I will thank you, and I will glorify you. For you are good. You are good. And your mercy endures forever. Great and mighty are you, Lord. Mighty and majestic is your name. So we lift you, and we give praise to you. And we exalt you. And Lord, you are worthy. You are worthy of all praise, of all honor, of all thanks. God, we hesitate not. We hesitate not to bless the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. Even in the midst of a world that is crooked and perverse, and even when certain things are not popular and your word is scoffed at, we will still bless you. You are altogether lovely. Even when people try to desecrate your name and your reputation, you're still lovely and wonderful and beautiful. And Lord, we will still exalt you. I'm always intrigued. I love the tabernacle. I love studying the tabernacle. Listen, y'all don't even know. I mean, I literally could study it all the time. I love the tabernacle. But at the beginning of that, in Exodus 25, I think it's verse 8, he said this to Moses. He said about Israel, he said, let them build me a sanctuary. Let them build me a sanctuary. A sanctuary is in the way that we understand, is kind of this place of protection. You know, animal sanctuary, bird sanctuary. This is a place of protection. I'm like, wait a minute. How are we building God a sanctuary? And I know how, just roll with me here a minute. He said, let them build me a sanctuary. I'm like, God, why did you want a sanctuary? And he said, this was years ago, he said to me, he said, have you heard how they curse my name? Have you heard the things that they say about me? Have you heard how they are trying to desecrate my reputation? They say all manner of evil against me falsely. Have you heard all of that? He said, in a sanctuary, he said, it's a place where I'm glorified and where I'm exalted and where I'm magnified. And he said, in that sense, so listen to this. The church is not our sanctuary. This should be God's sanctuary. This should be a place where he knows he can come and he's going to be exalted. He's going to be praised. He's going to be glorified. Right? He's going to be lifted up. And guess what? When he shows up, he is our sanctuary. He's the one who lifts up. Come on. He's the lifter of my head. If I will lift him up, he will lift me up. If I will praise him, he will carry me through. It will usher me forward. It will promote my advancement and my progress. So I want us personally, and I want us corporately, I want us to be a true sanctuary so that God can dwell, so he can habitate, so that he can be the sanctuary that people need. And they can run to him and be safe. Amen. Father, we love you. We honor you tonight. We glorify your name. Would you bless your people? Would you let us go out of here, oh God, determined to have a song in our heart and a praise on our lips, glorifying and lifting up your name, even in the midst of service. Lord, that don't mean things don't need to be dealt with. It don't mean things don't need to be addressed, of course. What it means is in the midst of it, I'm going to bless the Lord anyhow. I'm going to praise you anyhow. Nobody, nothing's going to steal my praise. I'm not going to lose my praise. Listen, church, don't ever lose your praise. You can lose a lot of things, but don't lose your praise. praise intact. Lord, we love you, we honor you. Bless your people, I pray. In Jesus' mighty name. Everybody said amen. Amen. Hey, I appreciate you tonight. I won't keep you. Did I do okay? I did pretty good, actually, for what I've been doing. Amen. Hey, I love you tonight. I pray you have a blessed week. Remember, no work day. No follow-up work day. This Saturday. Let's come back Sunday. Come on. Song in our heart. Praise on our lips. Hands raised. Ready to worship. Magnify the Lord. Amen. You can be dismissed. Love on each other. Let them know how much you appreciate each other. And we hope to see you Sunday. God bless.